Welcome back. City Council stalled on a new compromise proposal to empower the police superintendent to announce snap curfews for 3 hours at any time of the day in any part of the city. Supporters say it's an essential tool to break up teen gatherings that get out of hand, but opponents say it is likely unconstitutional.
It will be struck down, just like juvenile curfews have been struck down in San Diego, in West New York, in Sumner, Washington, in Rochester. This will be no different. Without more changes, it's going to happen, and it's going to be expensive.
So this ordinance gives us a tool, if needed, based upon the activity going on that day, to stop it, to save other kids' lives and other children. I mean, children's lives.
And joining us now to get into this, our former Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson, Rania Torres of the group Good Kids Mad City, and Sheila Beatty, professor at Northwestern University School of Law. Thank you all for being here. Eddie Johnson, 3-hour snap curfews any time of the day, although the superintendent has to confer with the mayor's office on calling them. Is this going to help curb these teen trends?
I think in theory it will, but what I don't like about it is the superintendent has to confer with City Hall. You know, these things pop up at the spur of the moment. I don't think that the superintendent should have to confer with City Hall and agree on the fact that we both agree that there's an issue. I think the superintendent should look at the situation. He's got boots on the ground, listen to them, and make that decision.
Rania Torres, what about you? Do you think that this is something that will help some of these gatherings from turning violent?
I do not. I believe it's criminalization. I believe that it will only promote more violence on top of it, as well as just create unnecessary arrests.
And Sheila Beatty, what about that question of constitutionality? Is this potentially opening the city up for litigation?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there is no way I can conceive of that the snap curfew could be constitutional. And then that's in part because the decision to impose it is just going to be without any kind of due process, without sufficient notice. You're going to have parents who are criminalized about something they didn't even know about. So, I mean, this flies in the face of the types of protections that are required in order to enact a curfew. But I think the bigger point here is that it's also just terrible policy. There's not one study that shows that curfews are successful at helping young people make positive choices. But Rania and her group have a whole plan about how to actually help young people enjoy the city and make positive life choices. And one of the things that's interesting about the moment we're in right now is that plan, the Peace Book, we haven't been able to get that through City Council. But this snap curfew has moved like this.
You were about to snap your fingers.
I was about to snap my fingers, yes.
Well, Eddie Johnson, it sounds like you think that the superintendent having that power will help. Do curfews work? Sheila Beatty is saying that there is no evidence that it works. Do police believe that it helps them?
Well, I know in my 31 years as a cop, when we did enforce the curfew law and engage the parents in participating in what their young people were doing that time of night, it did dissipate some things. So, you know, I always believe there's for every problem there is a solution. We just have to sit in it long enough to figure out what it is. But I do think it works if it's done correctly. But you have to get the parents involved in it also. All
right, Rania Torres, do you think that kids will pay attention? The sponsor of this ordinance says, well, it'll make them think twice before gathering and going to a certain neighborhood if they hear that there's a curfew now.
No, it definitely won't make them think twice. A lot of the times, kids don't care, you know, so we got to come up with a solution of how can we prevent this, and by doing so we can add events in their own neighborhoods, having youth-led events within their own neighborhoods, being able to provide a safe space for them, being able to provide a space where they not only feel acknowledged, seen, but heard, allowing them to just be, you know, kids. A lot of them just want to find their own way. So by allowing these snap curfews, you're only criminalizing them and adding more trauma on top of the trauma they already face.
Although I should mention that Mayor Johnson is a proponent of that. Are you saying that more should be done?
I'm saying that we should be able to pass something called the Peace Book, and the Peace Book is a vital resource to be able to put in these communities, to be able to have community-led events, more community-led events as a...
Okay, let me ask you a question. Suppose those same kids don't want to participate in those community-led events and they continue to come downtown and cause chaos, then what do we do with those kids?
So that's where this conversation has to be had on what else is needed for these kids, what type of resources is needed. There's mental health centers, there's, you know, trauma-informed centers, there's also peer-on-peers. Being able to reach out to certain youth, those youth can reach out to their own peers, being able to have that peer-on-peer conversations. When we do, like for last summer, 2023, in Hyde Park, we offered an event in Halloween. We had over 500 youth show out to our event that was peaceful, no fighting. There was youth peacekeepers that kept the peace there. And Hyde Park usually has some type of noise around that time, but in 2023, there was no noise.
So there are examples of these events helping, but Sheila Beatty, even with community-driven events, you still might see kids decide to go downtown. Some of them might want to cause trouble. Policing does need to be a part of this. Are there tools that they have now that they can use to disperse without a curfew?
Well, I'm going to first reject the premise that policing needs to be a part of this, and then I'll answer the curfew question. But, you know, the first thing I'll say is that we've got every city, Chicago, like every city, has a long history of flooding neighborhoods with policing resources, right? That always happens, right? The neighborhoods on the south and west side, they've been referred to as occupied territories. We've never flooded our neighborhoods, our underserved neighborhoods, with youth peacekeepers like Rainier. Right? We've never had that strategy. If alder people are really looking to do something different, flood our neighborhoods with Good Kids, Mad City, the Peace Book, and let's actually see what happens. Because to the former superintendent's point, there aren't enough youth-led events. So there probably will be young people looking for things to do across the city because we've never fully resourced youth peacekeeping at the same level that we resource policing. And then to your point about sort of, you know, what tools do the police have? The police always have the ability to disperse crowds when there's disorderly conduct. And one of the problems with this curfew proposal is it is requiring both somebody from the mayor's office as well as police to sort of do this kind of look in their crystal ball and predict who's going to come downtown and who's going to engage in mischief and who belongs downtown.
Oh, well, Eddie Johnson, do you have that ability to predict when things might turn south? And do you have the ability, does the police department have the ability now without the curfew to go in and disperse?
So, yes, we do. That's number one. But the second piece of that is we would monitor social media and see where they were going to gather. Now, we didn't take any police action unless there was a need to, but we would be there on the periphery in the event that we had to take some action, because once the toothpaste gets out of the tube, you can't put it back in there. So policing is going to have to be a part of that problem, whether we're right there in it with them at that moment or on the, you know, on the periphery of it to ensure, because we have a responsibility to the other folks in those neighborhoods to keep them safe. And I want to push back a little bit on what you said about flooding the areas. There are, listen, when I was superintendent and a cop, all black and brown communities that I went into, they never said there was too much policing going on there. They never said it. What they would say is that the police that were there, they wanted them to treat them respectfully and fairly. And I think that's a legitimate ask. But I think we have a responsibility to those young kids, but we also have a responsibility to the people that live in those areas that just want it quiet and peaceful. And there is a solution to it. We just have to put our heads together and figure out what that is.
All right, Rainier, tell us about the Peace Book. What exactly would that offer?
So the Peace Book will offer something called the Peace Book app, which is a vital resources into our community. It offers mental health services. It offers peacekeepers, somebody that is not the traditional policing. It's someone that is from the neighborhoods, because a lot of times CPD brings people from suburbs into neighborhoods like North Lawndale, and they don't know the communities. So the Peace Book provides peacekeepers that are exactly from the communities and have those relationships with the people in that community, so they're able to de-escalate situations. The Peace Book is just about de-escalating. It's something that needs to be pushed to be able to have events and to be able to support our young people in this time of need.
All right, Sheila Beatty, if this does pass, you have held the position that it would be unconstitutional. What would that mean liability-wise for the city?
It would certainly mean a lawsuit, and it would certainly mean a lawsuit that would challenge the constitutionality of the curfew ordinance. And to, you know, those alder people who actually are really trying to find a solution to this problem, it also means wasted time and wasted resources. They would be defending an unconstitutional statute instead of implementing something like the Peace Book, which is actually proven to be effective. So it's not just the fact that the city is going to be on the hook for legal fees, it's also the wasted time in implementing initiatives that really could work.
I want to ask you, do you feel confident you'd be able to run a system like that?
No, you know what I think, Paris? I think that the way it's currently constructed, there is going to be some legal issues with it. But if that's what I have to utilize at that time, then that's what I'm going to use and let the lawyers figure it out. But to Rainia's point, I do think that peer-on-peer things do work, but I got to push back on something that you said earlier. CPD doesn't go get people from the suburbs to try to resolve these issues, because those individuals usually don't know the intricate details of what's going on in that particular community. So CPD doesn't do that. Now, I can't tell you what the city does, but the police department doesn't do that. We utilize people from in the city. But it would be, based on the verbiage that I know of right now, it's going to be a difficult thing to actually use.
To be continued. We expect a committee vote on this on Monday and possible city council vote Wednesday. So we will keep monitoring this, and thank you all for being here. We are back to wrap things up right after this.